So symptoms. Hey everyone, since I've had derealization and depersonalization in a ceremony after an overwhelming amount of grief, my nervous system has been kind of in a trauma state. First, I was in derealization, depersonalization for months, totally out of body with full-on terror thoughts. Now I'm in fight or flight every moment. I can't rest besides sleeping. My ego won't let me take a nap even. It feels too dangerous, I guess. I experience visual disturbances every day, brain fog and tinnitus. Does anybody else experience this or have any tips? What can it mean? Do you have anything or
Yeah, well, I kind of addressed it in the comments a bit, but it makes me think of being on mushrooms, to be honest. You know, when the ego is in such, and by ego, whenever we say ego, we just mean sense of self, just like the self, the thing that you're used to, like me, Joe, like the thing that it is in my head. Um, that thing has been dented or compromised or it's pushed around and it doesn't recognize itself and it will just freak out beyond all belief. And when that happens, um, the nervous system interprets that as being in real danger. You know, you're in constant attack from tigers territory. Um, and I say mushrooms because your ego, your sense of self just gets obliterated or like distorted beyond any recognition. And the same thing happens when you feel that. If you've had such an experience, immense terror that comes with that, the terror is the ego's terror. Um, I guess that's more of a sort of my explanation of that state. Um, because I think it's about feeling safe as well. You know, these are all like mental things, and I'm not that doesn't diminish how unbelievably awful the experience is. It's truly horrible, and there's nothing you can really do other than on some level know that you are safe. You can look around the room, see that I'm in a safe environment. Maybe I'm lying on my bed, I'm sitting in a chair. I feel absolutely awful, and the fear is overwhelming. But I know fundamentally there's something in my body that knows I am safe, and I mean, that in those instances of um, extreme experiences are what can help get you through um, to when it's sort of subsided a bit. Um, I'm just really looking at the question. Did you have anything to add to what I just said, Steve?
yeah, because the derealization, depersonalization, I just wanted to talk like specifically about that
Mhm.
because what that is, and especially psychology says, first of all, that there's something wrong, like, oh,
Yeah.
this shouldn't be happening. And it is something that happens in the way that you're experiencing your vision. And I think they usually describe it as you feel like you're in a dream, but in a kind of scary way, instead of because you're awake, right? And you're in real life. And yet the way that you're experiencing things is like you're in a dream, which makes it feel like there's something wrong with you. Like, why am I feeling this? And what's actually happening, I said this in the comments, is that you said the ego, which is like literally this thing in the mind. It's almost like an image of you, a projection, right? Just like at the movie theater, there's a projector. And the image, the image on the screen, you can see the image. So you can say, there's the image exists. And yet, I think I said this in one of my videos. When you're watching, on the screen, there's an explosion in the movie. Do you get hurt by the explosion? No. So it means that, yeah, there it is. It exists on the screen, and yet it's an illusion. It can't hurt you. It can't, there's this space, right? So let me just see if I can connect the dots in my mind. So, all right. So the ego in the mind, it's so much more powerful and has its like tentacles almost wrapped around our entire experience, including the five senses. And so imagine like the eyeballs represent your vision, right? And then imagine that my hands are like the ego's hands on your vision. And this happened when we were probably like 7 or 8 years old. And before that, when we were very small, these hands, the ego didn't exist in the mind. So you were just experiencing the senses, right? And so once this was in place, you got used to it. And then this is normal. This is what is considered normal. Everybody lives this way. You can't even, you're not even aware of it. Now, when big shifts starts happening in awakening, this grip that the ego has on your vision, it's kind of losing its grip on it. And so even if it loses its grip a little bit like that, it's trying to do this, but now it's kind of losing its energy. That is the depersonalization that feels very, very strange. And it shows how much the ego is affecting how you experience your vision, which is the inability to enjoy it the way the children do. And so it is terrifying. People feel like they're completely going crazy, losing their mind. They're not going to recover. Like the ego is literally saying you're becoming more and more crazy. And if you keep going down this road, you can't go back to being normal, which is kind of funny. And and the last thing I want to say is that whatever experience is difficult will basically eventually just go away and you just get used to that. And in fact, I think that if you think about it, that is the vision becoming more pleasurable. But in the beginning, the ego is just fighting for its life to keep its control on your vision. But eventually you get used to it. And then later it will become very, very pleasurable.
Yeah. And I guess also in the sort of practical sense, because it's interesting for us to talk about this. And then I think about when you're in this state, it's like useless. It's just a horrible, horrible state to be in. And being able to understand or interpret it doesn't make it better, doesn't make anything better, which is, so distressing. Um, so again, I pointed to this a bit in the comment, but practically in the moment, you could notice that this is happening. You notice the resistance because it's the desperate, trying to reassemble the ego from a state of, derealization that is the pain, the resistance to simply there's a shift that's happened temporarily. The ego is freaking out. Immense fear has arisen. That fear has put my body into fight or flight. But you can notice that this pain is there. You might be able to get a small amount of distance where you're seeing that the pain is there and not being all consumed in like I'm terrified and I can't do anything. It won't be like, oh, I can just think that and it will do this, but you can begin to do that. And that's that distance that I was sort of speaking about. And in that distance, you can have a little bit of um uh release from the all-consuming suffering that occurs.
Yeah, and I just want to say, when we talk about this stuff, it can sound like now that it's no longer happening to me, oh, that I can just talk about it. It's so easy. But when it was happening to me, it was like a living nightmare. And I felt completely lost. And every day I felt worse and worse and worse. And I was just lost in that. And I felt like I was becoming insane and I was losing my mind. I would take walks and I'd have this like music playing. And it's odd because I could feel that I was feeling kind of peaceful, but my body was just beginning to get used to the peace. And so the ego was like, this piece is like, this is insanity. Think about how crazy that statement is. The ego is saying that this is too much peace. And too much peace is crazy. You shouldn't go down there. It's too much, it's too silent.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just wanted to stress that I can talk about it now like it's easy. It's not happening to me anymore. But back then, I also didn't have anybody to tell me what was happening. So it made it really like a nightmare. And now I can tell you that if that was happening to me for months, you can think of it as like something leaving your body or leaving your mind. Like every day that you're experiencing that, or a percentage, one more percent today is gone because that's what happened to me. I never thought it would end, but one day it did. So it really was every day that I experienced, it was leaving my system, my nervous system. And there is probably a certain threshold that it's like, now this is enough, and then you stop experiencing it. And so, you know, I think just us talking about this, I think can be very helpful to Sienna or anybody experiencing that, because to say that it's like absurdly difficult, all these words that we can use, ridiculously, impossibly difficult, still doesn't really describe what it is. It's the worst.
Yeah. How are we doing with the time, Steve?
So it's an hour now.
Okay. Well, we maybe we can do one more.
Yeah, okay. So I think Beata had another question. So okay, I did the going deeper. Oh, okay. So her question was about disgust.